Hey, how's it going, beloved? It's your old pal CK Blackwood here again. So this will be part two of my interview with, as you can plainly see, the most special guest. I can't even believe it's still hard to believe I've even been talking to her. This is Mrs. Ellen Johnson. She was president of American Atheists, succeeding Madeline herself. So, Ellen, thanks so much for being with me once again.
You're very welcome. It's nice to be back.
So, the I don't know for the viewers out there, you guys. I don't know when I will be able to get part one up. I'm trying to play with the audio because it turned out it was a mistake on my part. I should have had her on speakerphone because we did it over the phone, like cavemen. We went Neanderthal, went right over the direct on the telephone, not social media. So I'm presuming that I'll have them both up at the same time, but part one may just have to go up after part two. So in part one, we had. Why don't I just get the proper and well-deserved ass kissing out of the way? Ellen, thank you so much again for being you and for the work you've done and for the pearls of wisdom you gave in part one of our interview.
It was my pleasure.
This no, it was certainly some pleasure because you gave you mentioned how we need to get into office, we need to focus on local elections, and then we atheists need to take credit when a candidate actually, what a candidate who has the right values we need to take credit for it when we get them into office, essentially.
Right. We need to demonstrate our power. We have the numbers to be courted by the politicians, but they don't see that because we don't vote as a block. All right. Look, we don't do that. So we need to demonstrate that we are a voting bloc. I don't know if we can get atheists to do that because, as everyone knows, trying to organize atheists is like herding cats.
Herding cats, okay. Yes, ma'am.
So, we need to demonstrate our power to the politicians. Then they'll come out and they'll court our votes. They'll say, what do you want from me to get your vote? But we don't do that. We don't do that now.
No, we don't. We've certainly, there have been, and we discussed this last time too, of course, I don't want to reiterate too much, but the atheist movement, we've had some good, I think it's mostly actually been bad changes. I think we've had some good changes. Overall, people are starting to wake up and do great things. But as far as just the movement of active atheists, it's not been so nice to us lately. The current not just the political climate, of course, but just the way we've been behaving. So it'll be great to get people fired up again for sure. I actually had run across. I was lucky enough to meet Hemant Mehta. I'm sure you remember him, the thinking, not the thinking atheist. That's Seth. Jeez, I'm so scatterbrained today. He was what was the name of his blog? I forget.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, it's great, but I wish I knew. I can Google it, but he was just recently on Jeopardy. He's great.
Yeah, he was on Jeopardy. I was lucky enough to meet him about a year ago. And I had seen a photo he took with you at, I think, your last annual international or national conference with American Atheists. And I was wondering if you had maybe any stories about what that was like when you met him. Like, did he have any insight, or because he always seems to give a good insight?
Honestly, no, I don't. I don't remember even when I did meet him. To tell you the truth. When was it?
This was 2008.
Oh, okay. That was that was the year I was fired from American Atheists.
Yes.
So honestly, I don't remember. Yeah, that was a blur. So yes. I do him very much. What was that? It's 2008. It's 2014. Yeah, I'm looking for the name of his, and he has a great news source. Sorry, Hemant. Sorry.
I know. I don't know why I keep confusing the thinking atheist. Maybe that was it. I'm trying to remember which was Seth's show and which was Hemant's blog.
Yeah, let me see. Yeah,
and we go into, for the record, my friends, we go into more of that firing, that ridiculous firing in part one of the interview. So we won't reiterate that. But she was fired for doing the right thing, really. So
Friendly atheist.
friendly. There we go. Yeah, Seth is the thinking atheist. Hemant Mehta is the friendly atheist. And also, I wanted to bring up to you something I'd forgotten last time. So when I was at the only conference, it was Dave Silverman's last conference. It was 2018 actually. It was in March of 2018. It was in Oklahoma City. The only National American Atheists conference to which I was lucky enough to go. Guess who I ran into at the elevator randomly? I never even expected. I didn't even know he was still part of the movement.
Who?
Dave Kong. You remember him?
Oh yeah, of course. We go way back. He was on our board of directors.
Oh, was he really? Because I mean, the thing is, I had seen what it was when I first became an atheist. Okay, I had seen him in a documentary, and I never knew he had any status in the movement. It was just I saw him say, hey, I had met Madeline. I just went to her. I was like, hey, you're fucking excellent. She was just went, I know, and I just ran into him in the elevator, so that was a real treat for me because I never expected to meet him. So
He's been around as long as I have.
no,
Oh yeah, we've been to every convention together. He was on our board of directors. Yeah, I don't think he voted to fire me though, which is a good thing.
I would think not. I mean, he's just a wicked awesome guy. I mean, he doesn't age either.
Yeah.
He looks exactly the same as when Madeline was still around. So, all right. So getting into, I'll use that as a segue. So what I wanted the main focus today to be was, tell us about the disappearance of Madeline, Garth, and Robin.
All right, Garth is John Garth Murray, Madeline's son. He took over as president. She resigned, I forget what year, and he became the president. Robin is Madeline's granddaughter. She has another son. For people who don't know, Madeline had two sons, John Garth and William Murray. The William Murray is the plaintiff in the famous Murray versus Curlett Supreme Court case of 1963. So she had two sons, and John Garth became the president. Robin was the editor of the magazine, and she was fabulous. So you want to know, I'm sorry, the question was, what about the disappearance?
Yeah, so what was it like for you, and what do you have to say about it, really?
The takeaway is trust your gut, people. If it seems like something is wrong with your friends, don't think everything is okay. After that disappearance, Conrad Gehringer, who was on the board of directors, he didn't respond to emails or phone calls. I sent the police to his house. That's my takeaway. Another friend who all of a sudden disappeared from Facebook, I was asking people, why has he disappeared? And we asked around, we found out, he was okay. He was just on vacation in another state with family. He was just that's my takeaway. That's my takeaway. Now, that's not to say that when the Murray O'Hares disappeared, we didn't do everything we could to find out what was going on. But like I said, do everything you can to find out what's wrong with somebody. If you think something might be wrong, stick your nose in. All right, that's very important. So, yeah, you don't want to say, you don't want to have to live with why didn't I do something? Why did I think everything was okay? And only to find out that friends or family or whatever were not okay. That's my takeaway to everybody listening. Stick your nose in. Yeah. Until you're satisfied that they're okay. Yeah, that's my takeaway.
And I mean, it's times have certainly changed. I think that I always say how funny it is that there's quite a bit of rudeness these days with communication that's socially acceptable. But I think you can, if somebody could not be okay or is probably not okay, your gut will tell you. Don't
think you're being rude or you shouldn't stick your nose in. Stick your nose in. Better to be safe than sorry.
Oh, I was referring to if you communicate with somebody, they don't respond. That was what I meant. Yeah. That's what's rude. But for some context for people out there, because I want to reiterate this. I guess if you've been living under a rock, I call her Madeline Mays or Maddie Mays. I don't ever like saying Murray O'Hare. she's best known to the public as Madalyn Murray O'Hair. She was the founder and first president of American Atheists. She was one of the, in my view, one of the top, maybe even three, but at the very least five finest people to ever walk the face of this planet. She's a heroine of mine, as is Ellen here.
Me too.
And
Well, thank you.
She had hired somebody for American Atheists to work as, I believe it was a typesetter. Is that right?
You mean David Waters?
Yeah, I didn't want to say his name. I don't want to give him any more publicity.
Well, he's dead.
Okay, well, fair enough.
He was the office manager.
Oh, okay. So yeah, she hired. I'm not going to say his name. This sorry
I don't know
scumbag
if
who was.
I started as a typesetter, but he was the office manager when they disappeared.
Okay, so yeah, and he, what it was Madalyn had exposed him for some crimes about which he had not known previously, and he wanted some revenge. Isn't that how it went down?
I forget what it was, but that's not what caused the crimes. He was a sociopath. He had a criminal record going back to his teen years. He had assaulted his mother. He had problems. Okay, he did. But he was definitely a sociopath. Even his girlfriend, he beat up on his girlfriend. He was just, but the Murray O'Hairs didn't know this. They did not have access to any of that information. They hired him. So go ahead, take it from there.
Well, I mean, yeah, and I guess it wasn't fair, really. I mean, it's hard for me not to call him a sorry scumbag because, of what he did, but
Yeah.
he was a sick guy. And he wanted some money that they had in gold. I guess they had it in gold, or they had it converted to gold. And
The Murray O'Hairs were very good with money. And so they took the money from, I guess it was one of the trust funds or something. They invested it in New Zealand, in stocks and things in New Zealand, where the return was 3 times what you would get here in the US. So they had it invested there. Now David Waters opened the mail, saw the statements from the Bank of New Zealand, and saw that what was there in New Zealand dollars, if I'm not mistaken, it was 3 times or something. It was just, it looked like a lot of money. So he thought he would steal the money somehow. And he enlisted the help of another ex-con who had been in jail for many years for rape and kidnapping. He's still in jail. And another guy, do you want me to not say their names, or the third guy they murdered. So there's Gary.
Yeah, they murdered the other guy, yeah.
Gary, who's still in jail, David Waters, who died in jail, and he died in jail, I think, from cancer. Gary Carr is still in jail, and the third guy was Danny. They enlisted the help of, so the 3 of those geniuses decided they were going to kidnap the Murray O'Hairs and extort them to get all the money out of New Zealand, max out credit cards, do everything they could, just rob them blind. And so they went, do you want me to continue with the story?
No, yeah, please. That's what this is about, this segment.
Okay, so the 3 of them showed up. They rented a big van. They showed up. The Murray O'Hairs were tireless workers. They worked on a Sunday, even on a Sunday. And one of the reasons why they worked on a Sunday was because you could get things done without the day-to-day phone calls and the rest of the staff. They could just go in there and do some work. So David Waters and his 2 cohorts showed up with a van, knocked on the door. I think David Waters did. John Murray let them in. Then they kidnapped the 3 of them, took them to their house, the Murray O'Hair home, and they got their things, and they took them to I don't know what you would call it, a place in San Antonio where an extended stay type of a place, okay? And they got John. John actually went with one of them, came up to New Jersey to, in fact, I had in New Jersey, we had a bank account for some donations. So he, obviously at the point of a gun, got John on a, we don't know everything, but it seemed like they were, they threatened to kill Robin and Madeline if John did anything, to let on to what was going on. But, they went all over the place. They wired the money out of New Zealand back into the US. They bought gold coins with it. They had John max out credit cards, do all kinds of things. So Conrad Gehringer, who was also on the board of directors, and he was the head writer for American Atheists, called me one day and said, "Hey, have you heard from the Murray O'Hares?" I said, "No, I haven't really tried to get in touch with them."
So how long had it been at that point when Conrad called you? How long had it been since you had heard from them?
Well, I hadn't really been in touch with them. I hadn't need to. It could have been a week or 2 weeks, but I wasn't really, involved in anything at that time, so I didn't need to. So I said, "No, I hadn't had. Why? Is something wrong?" And he said, "Well, they're not responding to phone calls. They're not responding to emails or anything." Okay. So at one point, they had cell phones with them, or a cell phone. I mean, we're talking 1995.
Yeah, this was 95. Yeah. Cell phones were still, I remember seeing a commercial from, I think it was 88 or 89, that cell phones in those days, they were only sold at Radio Shack, and they were something like $800. They were really only for businessmen. So
They did have a cell phone though, and we were texting or emailing them. I do know that. And finally they answered. Robin answered the cell phone, a phone call. I remember Robin answered. And I remember Conrad did not trust anything that they were saying. Conrad was suspicious of everything. Me, not so much. The Murray O'Hares, they lived a very interesting life, a lot of intrigue,
yes.
and so when they said to me, everything, John at one point on the phone said to me, "Everything is okay. When we get back, we're out of the office. When we get back, we'll let you know what's going on." Conrad didn't believe a word of it. I thought, okay, they'll tell me. At one point, I was a little nervous, and I said to Robin, "Are you being held, at the point of a gun? Have you been kidnapped?"
You had said, I think we went over this in the first interview, but you had said that just you could tell something was wrong in her tone of voice when you spoke to Robin, to the point where you even said, "Are you being held at gunpoint right now?"
You're right. That's right. You just reminded me. I forgot about that. That she just didn't sound. Nothing. Things didn't sound right. And she said. So I asked her, "Are you being held? Are you kidnapped? Are you being kidnapped?" At the point of, she said, "Well, could I tell you if I was?"
I'll never forget that. She was like, "Well, could I tell you if I was?" Wow.
Those were her
That'll stick with
words.
me. Yeah.
And they were. And no, she couldn't if she was. We didn't know where they were. So we called the police at one point in Texas.
Well, do you remember? Sorry to interrupt. But do you remember anything else about what Robin said that made you think that that prompted you to ask that, or?
No, I really don't.
Okay.
I was
Or
just
was it just
worried.
her tone of, again? Was it just her tone of voice, or just okay?
Could have been. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And I remember, let's see, I'd have to think about it. I don't recall too much about the conversations. Did I ever talk to Madeline on the phone? I don't think I ever got Madeline on the phone.
Well, because
No.
at the time, what were you still doing with American Atheists at that time? What was were you still just?
I was on the board of directors.
Oh, so you were on the board. Okay, by that point.
Right. I was on the board of directors. And, we were, talking with the other board members, trying to figure out, well, what do we do? At one point, we called the police, and the police went over to the house, and absent any evidence of a crime, like the police look in a window, you look in a window, you see blood on the floor, you see broken windows or something. They can't, the response is, well, they could have left on their own. There's nothing we can do. People can leave on their own. There's nothing we can do. So, they weren't trying not to find them, but there was nothing they could do.
Well, I mean, but the police, it's I wasn't around at that time. I mean, I was only, when this happened, I was only about 3 years old, just barely. So, but from what I've seen in the documentaries and the such like, the police were just they were behaving like typical police, you know, that they, and with the public perception, also for the record, guys, Ellen mentioned that they had a very prolific life. At one point, Madeline was known as the most hated woman in America. This was long before Westboro Baptist Church had ever come on the scene. She was the most hated. She was the OG most hated, as they say, the original. The police had thought that the Murray O'Hares had just taken the money and run.
Well, not police, but you raise a good point, and I'm glad what you're mentioning is so around that the Murray O'Hares were missing. Okay, it got out to the media, it got out to the members, and people thought, because what was happening at that time was, and let me give a little backstory. The Murray O'Hares did their own taxes for the corporation,
Yes.
right? Madeline was a lawyer. They were smart people. Robin did her own taxes. She used the EZ form. Robin was audited every year, even though she used the EZ form. They were audited every year. Well, what they did was they made some mistakes on their taxes for the corporation. They just made mistakes. They weren't doing anything criminal. It was they were investigated up to here, but they just made mistakes. So being audited by the IRS, money was starting to disappear, and the Murray O'Hares are gone. So people started to say, aha, the Murray O'Hares are stealing from the organization and taking off. Well, you know, the Murray O'Hares are the ones who put that money in the organization. They raised it, they earned it, they did everything to put it there. Why would they take off with it? Okay, these are the most honest people ever. Yeah, so that's what the scuttlebutt was. Oh, the Murray O'Hares, they're stealing. So that got the media, TV shows calling me. And then I forget the name of the reporter, but they thought I knew something about where the Murray O'Hares were because I was in touch with them. Right. Okay, therefore they showed up at my house with TV crews. They were following me around. They wanted to interview me, but I'm at the same time thinking something. I started to think something serious had happened to them, that maybe they were kidnapped, and the Murray O'Hares didn't want to say what was going on. So I really shouldn't say anything because I'm thinking maybe the Murray O'Hares are hiding from somebody who wants to do them harm. Therefore, I can't say anything because I don't want to let on. So it got very convoluted.
Very dicey, very convoluted, yes, yes.
Right, so I didn't want to talk to the media, and then they think I'm trying to hide what I know about the Murray O'Hares. And I didn't, and so I didn't know anything.
And I mean, you know, it took, another thing I was going to mention is that it took the police so long to actually find out what had happened, really, right?
It wasn't the police, it was actually a reporter from the San Antonio Express News. I forget his name, but he started sniffing around. And what happened? At one point, he wasn't getting anywhere. He wasn't fine because nobody could. Nobody knew what had happened to them. So at one point, part of what people should also know is the third guy in this saga, his name was Danny Fry. He had a drinking problem. And the Murray O'Hares, either this was after they murdered them, the three of them murdered the Murray O'Hares, but Danny Fry started to get cold feet. So Gary Carr and David Waters had taken Danny Fry out to the woods somewhere on some ruse that they have to find a place to bury them, or I don't know, I don't remember. I have to, I review everything because I don't remember exactly what that was. But and they took him out there and they killed him. They killed him in the woods because they were afraid he was going to talk. And they cut off his head and they cut off his hands. And so there was a headless, handless body found in the woods. And the reporter from the San Antonio Express News, they started to investigate who that headless, handless corpse was. They found out who it was, how I don't know. They found out who it was. They linked him to David Waters. All right. And that's how they got in touch with David Waters. And that pretty much unraveled the whole thing. The Murray O'Hares, at one point, they murdered the three of them, suffocated them, strangled them, and their bodies were cut up. put into steel drums, hauled off to a ranch in Texas somewhere, and buried out in the middle of a ranch. I think Gary Carr is the one who told the police or the FBI where to find the bodies, as part of a plea deal or something. And that's when they found the bodies.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, so it wasn't even the police. It wasn't. Sorry, say again?
That we didn't know until like a year later what happened to the Murray O'Hares.
Exactly. Like, I mean, it was a whole year before, and it was only because a reporter did some snooping that anybody even found out what happened. Who knows how long it could have been.
Yeah,
That gets me.
I remember I had to go to Texas to testify at Gary Carr's trial. Yeah, but that's all I remember. I went to Texas and testified. We met with the FBI. There was a man named Ed Martin, a really straight up guy who worked for the FBI in the accounting department, or the IR, or the internal, something to do with taxation department. And he had to interview me to see if were the Murray O'Hares pilfering from the organization.
Everybody would love to believe they were.
But we were interviewed by a lot of the FBI, but he was a straight up stand-up guy. He was all for knowing what the truth was. He didn't have any biases or anything like that. He was just a straight up, my hat's off to you, Ed Martin. You're a great guy, just very honest and only looking for you just want to find out the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I mean, that's part of what this movement is about, and why it's such a fantastic movement, because it's what everybody ought to do, is just look for the truth. Bertrand Russell said that the cold hard facts and them alone are what we ought to use in our search for truth, and we need to look at what's best for us, what's best for society, for everybody.
Right, absolutely, mixed with a little bit of compassion.
Yes.
But so the months dragged on. At one point, we lost communication with them. They stopped answering our cell phones. That was when they were murdered.
Yes.
And I'm thinking that was like a month or two after they disappeared. They disappeared in September, I think. It was September? It was around September. Or were they murdered in September? It could have been that they were murdered in September and they disappeared during the summer. Again, I don't know if I even have notes on this, but that's what happened. And then when we lost contact, we were doing everything we could to keep the organization going. We had to put out a newsletter, a magazine, and they were in Texas. The board of directors, I was a stay-at-home mom going to school at night. I had 2 young children going to school at night for nursing. And so they said to me, well, would you just kind of be an interim president, do something so that you can have legal access to bank records and all kinds of things, make decisions. So I did that. I thought they were going to come back someday. I didn't think that they were murdered or kidnapped, but I didn't know. So I tried to make decisions and keep things going. I would go down to Texas a lot to learn how they did everything. And I tried to do everything based upon what they would have done, based upon keeping everything the way it was, so it would be just as it was when they came back. But after a year, I had to stop looking over my shoulders and stop making decisions based upon how they would do things. I had to start making decisions based upon how I thought we should do things. And then then the bodies were found.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you finally found out, I mean, what was that like?
It was horrific, just horrific. It was shock, absolute shock, and anger, and of all these wonderful, wonderful people who sacrificed everything,
The most
and gave
wonderful people.
a cause that this should happen to them. They were very trusting people, and we don't even want to think about what life was like for them in that residence that they stayed in. It's terrible. I think Robin was raped by Gary Carr. I remember. That reminds me, because that's when at some point she wasn't talking normally. She was very stressed, and that's could have been what had happened when that happened.
Because that documentary, well, not documentary. I keep wanting to say that movie that Netflix made as a kind of a reenactment of Madeline's life and of the disappearance. Like they even, in a way, it was entertaining, of course, because I love Madeline to death. To see like her exploits acted out. They even showed like what it probably was like, or what they thought it was like when they were held hostage. Like Madeline, of course, was cursing and spitting up a storm, like, "You fuckers, let me go! You're never going to get away with this," if you'll pardon my French. But there was a scene in that film where Robin was in the kitchen getting a midnight snack, and one of them came up behind her and was about to do something sexual, about to assault her, and one of the others had stopped him. But who's to say that they would have, in reality, that he would have been stopped?
I don't think he was. I think she was raped. Absolutely think that happened.
Well, that's typical. Again, that's typical prison boys. Like of course, they would do something like that. The nature of the beast comes out, the primal man.
They were just wonderful people. So wonderful that at one point at one of the conventions, the annual conventions we had a memorial. And we asked, we had a microphone. We had people come up, and anybody who wanted to say anything about their memories of the Murray O'Hares, come on up, say, say what you want to say. And that went on for 4 hours.
I know, we talked about that the first time. It's just that was the most beautiful thing to me. That for hours people would, yeah, wow. Because and this is, again, I want to reiterate, that. The public's perception was that she was this mean old bitch, or that she was a nasty person. Like even Phil Donahue, bless him, no pun intended, bless him. He even said in a documentary I saw that Madeline, could be very unpleasant and sarcastic. But I mean, the memories, and I almost hate to say this in a way because it makes me sound like a sycophant or whatever. But from what I saw, she was a sweet lady. She just told the truth and put reality out when reality is not easy to swallow. People need to remember that, is that to hear the truth has never been a nice feeling, and it was because of Madeline that it wasn't that she took prayer out of schools. It was that something was going on in that public school that was unconstitutional. Madeline said, I'm not going to have my child subjected to this. Let's take it to the courts. And, the Supreme Court ruled what was already there. It was unconstitutional to have religion does not belong in the public sector or the public sphere or whatever you want to say. So it's just the truth does not always comport with what you may believe, but it doesn't matter what you believe,
Well, after that decision came down 8-1 in favor of the atheist family, because they said in their brief that they were atheists.
They did.
Your plaintiffs are atheists.
Petitioner, I'll never forget Madeline said, she read it out. And she said, and you'll understand this despite the bit of legal jargon, she said, your petitioners are atheists. We bow no knees and we bow no head, and we I wish I could remember exactly what.
I have it. I can find it while you're talking.
Yeah. And she was at the end of it. She said, "Doesn't that sound awfully serious and intense?" As a description of atheists, because people have this. I've talked. It bears repeating, but we've talked about it so much. The stigma against us is that we are serious and intense, that we're just these crotchety old, coffee drinkers who are mad at the world and this, that, and the other, and that we just want to offend people. People don't understand the struggle of the atheist, nor do they want to, so.
Would you like to hear what they said in their case in 1963?
Please.
Since this was the basis for the lawsuit, they put an explanation of what an atheist was into the suit. It's in the records of the Baltimore, Maryland Superior Court. That historical reference to the atheism of the petitioners reads, quote, "Your petitioners are atheists, and they define their beliefs as follows. An atheist loves his fellow man instead of a God. An atheist believes that heaven is something for which we should work now, here on earth, for all men together to enjoy. An atheist believes that he can get no help through prayer, but that he must find in himself the inner conviction and strength to meet life, to grapple with it, to subdue it, and to enjoy it. An atheist believes that only in a knowledge of himself and a knowledge of his fellow man can he find the understanding that will help to a life of fulfillment. He seeks to know himself and his fellow man rather than to know a God. An atheist believes that a hospital should be built instead of a church.
There you go. Love that one.
An atheist believes that a deed must be done instead of a prayer said. An atheist strives for involvement in life and not escape into death. He wants disease conquered, poverty vanquished, war eliminated. He wants man to understand and love man. He wants an ethical way of life. He believes that we cannot rely on a God or channel action into prayer, nor hope for an end of troubles in a hereafter. He believes that we are our brother's keepers and are keepers of our own lives, that we are responsible persons and the job is here and the time is now.
The job is here. Exactly. The job is here and the time is now. And doesn't that, as Madeline said, doesn't that sound awfully serious and intense? That was how she had done it, made a record where she read that off and then she concluded it with that. So, and I'm surprised
Sorry.
No, I was just saying, I'm surprised I forgot all that. I remembered as you started reading it, I remembered, and I love that bit about how, for those of you out there, keep in mind that prayer is just doing nothing while you're feeling like you've done something. And an atheist, my favorite bit is an atheist believes that a hospital should be built instead of a church. You were going to say?
When the decision came down in favor of the atheist family, that's when the crap hit the fan. They were harassed. Bill Murray was beaten up at school. It was a terrible existence. They were driven from their home in Baltimore, Maryland, and they went to what they thought was a secular state, Hawaii. And from Hawaii, that's when they went to Texas. So they were driven out of their home. And that's what happened.
Wow. I mean, and there's in that same, it used to be, somebody used to have the audio file on the internet, but now it's no longer there. I'm sorry to say. It was, the title of it was Why I Am an Atheist. And it was just Madeline speaking, just her voice, her raw voice on a record. And she went through what they went through at the time of that. I mean, it was, she said, and our cars got it. We were harassed. We spat on. People screamed at them like fish peddlers. She said, my beds of pansies, my azaleas, all my flowers were trampled. Bill's ham radio was torn down. Every time he would build it back up, they would tear it down, and mobs would demand that Bill would be turned over to them to be lynched. And it was.
I have some here. Let's see, the police, okay. The Murray family was actually driven from Maryland through physical abuse and assaults. At that time, Bill Murray was dating a Jewish girl named Susan Abramovitz.
Ooh.
The Abramovitz family were Orthodox Jews. Her parents didn't like her dating Bill, more so because he wasn't Jewish than because he was an atheist. Susan became pregnant, and she and Bill wanted to marry, but they were only 17 years of age. They went to Baltimore, Maryland to marry and asked Madeline to sign consent forms for the marriage. She did, and they married. The Abramovitz family filed a suit against Madeline, stating that she had kidnapped and brainwashed their daughter. For unknown reasons, a court ordered Susan into the custody of her aunt and uncle. When Susan didn't appear at her aunt and uncle's house, the police went looking for her at the Murray home. But lacking a search warrant, Madeline quite rightfully wouldn't let them in. The police charged their way into the house, and when the Murrays resisted, they were severely beaten, while the neighbors egged on the police, shouting, "Kill them, hit them harder, get that bitch." Mrs. Murray's aging mother was hospitalized with a brain concussion, and Madeline was also hospitalized. The Murray family was charged with assault and battery of 14 police officers, and they were sent to jail. They were released on bail, and fearing a hearing before a hostile court, they decided to leave. Madeline stated, "If I go before that kangaroo court, I wouldn't stand a chance. The police would bring in 250 witnesses, neighbors who hate me." The Baltimore Sun at that time editorialized on that city's shameful treatment of the family, stating that the city had treated Mrs. Murray shabbily. And of course, Susan Abramovitz is Robin Murray's mother. And
I had no idea that that had happened. I mean, I'm knocked for a loop right now. That's what we go through, friends. I mean, that's how it started. I mean, you want to act like we're the hateful ones, you know, and that I mean, I'm sorry to keep getting on the soapbox and be, what's the word? Not sanctimonious, but I mean, come on, people. You know, that you want to talk about persecution in a way. That's when the public perception of atheists is as such, that's what we go through. And I mean, it's another testament against the police also, of course, you know, that they can do things like that. And because, you know, as long as the public has this perception, you know, they can get away with anything.
Well, you keep it to yourself because you don't want to be fired. Okay, yeah. These days, you know, you could be in a hostile religious environment and be fired. Yeah. So it's very difficult. You know.
And Madeline, it's just what gets me is Madeline was living with her elderly parents, and they got beaten up too.
Father was dead.
Well, and they got beaten up too. So.
Yeah, you know, and the religious are losing in so many ways in society today. They're losing with, you know, with the gays are marrying, gays have TV shows, evolution is being taught in the schools. They're losing in so many areas. So people are not going to churches anymore like they used to. Churches are now being used daycares and exercise classes, and their schools are shutting down and all kinds. So the religious have to go to where the people are, where they have a captive audience. So where is that? The schools, the public schools, the workplace, the military, and jails.
And jails, yes. That was, I mean, we could talk all day. I mean, I remember, and, you know, we talked about this in the first interview, that, you know, religion is losing. I think that the problem with this administration under Pence and Trump, you know, nobody ever talks about Pence. I hate that. But he's, you know, the people who follow the Donald Trump is just a puppet. You know, Pence is the real danger in a way. It's the religious right and people who follow that sort of ideology of just a theocracy, you know, no equality, misogyny, sexism, even up to the point of genocide. All these things that are Christian, solid Bible values. Those people who follow that are given not just carte blanche, they're given free rein in today's society to discriminate. And as far as pushing the beliefs, you know, there was even a study back in 2013, I believe, either 13 or 14, that Protestantism, which I don't think it ever really was, I agree with what Madeline actually said at one point, that Christianity is not really it's never actually been the majority. It's just a series of cults that's littering the landscape, and that it's stressed in our culture, but we don't, you know, it's not actually the majority. But there was a study that was done in either 13 or 14 that Protestantism is no longer the majority as far as what people put down for their religion in the U.S. anymore. And you know, so atheism is winning out. You know, the people who check off the none box, you know, as far as religion, and the only thing keeping butts in the pews these days is people want that sense of family. They have the social pressure, or they want to, you know, have a daycare, as you said, or a means to just.
Winning out. Religion is winning out in the political sphere because we're invisible. We have to make some noise.
Politically, religion has gained so much power, and that's a problem. That's a real problem, because if we have one religion winning out, or any religion winning out, you know, what's going to happen? What are the ramifications? You know, it's a very serious thing, and people don't see that.
Let me give you an example of how you have to demonstrate your power. All right, I'm going to read. I'm going to read this. Politicians alter their behavior, speech, and positions in order to avoid incurring the wrath of the faithful. Do what the religious are very good at doing, being a pain in the ass. Be a pain in the ass for what you want and stop worrying about what people will think about you as an atheist if you do this or that. The religious don't care what you think about them, and that is why they usually get what they want.
That's right.
Let me give you an example. A rumor began in the 1970s that Madeleine O'Hair started a petition to the FCC to stop all religious broadcasting. In 1975, the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, had received 750,000 letters protesting a petition that never existed. By July of 1976, the FCC received a total of 3,700,000 letters against the phantom petition, and they were coming in at a rate of 4,300 a day. By October of that year, the FCC had received 4 million letters. In December of 1976, the phantom petition now included the lie that Madeleine O'Hair had been granted a hearing with the FCC on this petition. By then, the FCC had received 5 million letters, and they were receiving 7,500 complaints a day. The rumor got bigger, and the daily letter count grew to 13,000 a day, and the total was now up to 6,500,000 letters. When all was said and done, the religious had demonstrated their power. It didn't even matter that it was a phantom petition. So I don't care what people complain about, just as long as the powers that be know that you will complain if they do something you don't like. I want them worrying about what we're going to do if they do something we don't like. Okay?
Absolutely. Those are. Sorry, go ahead.
Just one example. I've got more. I mean,
yeah, this is just for the record. These are more pearls of wisdom, guys. Take notice. They don't, we care too, and I get why, but we care too much about what they think. We are doing the right thing. We're fighting the good fight. So stand up and be proud, and just, just show what we want, because these are the right issues. We're on the right side of things. Don't care about what people think.
Let me give you an example. So with all my years of American Atheists, and I have a master's in political science. I love politics. I love getting involved, and we were involved in a lot of protests, a lot of political activity, and it's empowering. It's fun. You can make it fun. And here, I want to give you all an example of one way in which activism can be fun. I forget what year this was, but one of our members, Larry Mundinger, was amused by the See You at the Pole demonstrations in front of his son's high school. The See You at the Pole was organized by religious groups so that the students, before school started, would gather around the flagpole and pray.
Yes.
And the reason was to demonstrate, to witness to everybody, because everybody had to walk past them. They had to be seen praying. You had to see them and hear them. That what was all it was all about. They couldn't go in there pray before they went to school because no one would see them or hear them. Okay, they need to have an audience. So that's the See You at the Pole, and they around, I think it was May of every year, they have these See You at the Pole. It's all about being seen and being heard. So Larry Mundinger was amused when he saw this at his son's school. So he convinced some of his friends to stage a mock Druid ceremony around one of the trees in front of the school. Hey, what's sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander.
What's sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander. Yes, ma'am.
So the next morning, as people were dropping their children off, they saw a group of students dancing around and worshiping this tree. And before it had all died down, in a couple of days, some of the fanatical religious fundies had organized a petition to have the tree cut down.
Oh. because it's now a witch. It's like when Jesus cursed a fig tree. All of a sudden now this tree is evil because anything other than Christianity has gotten a hold of it. It's just, the whole thing is so stupid. I mean, grow up, people. Really, I mean, these are adults we're talking about. But yeah, I mean, and that's what a group with which I'm. That's a group with which I'm proud to be involved now. The Satanic Temple. That's what we're doing. Is if the Christers try to take over, I always call them Christers because that's what Madeline called them. If the Christers try to take over this country, other religions need to stand up and say, no, this is pluralism. We have the voices too, because we also have a religion. And what happens oftentimes, if not always, dare I say, is that the Christers will stop trying to put their monument up in a public place because they want to be the only ones there. They don't want pluralism. Right. They want to take over.
Fine. So the Satanic Temple, if they ask for equal time to put up a monument or to have a display or whatever, that will oftentimes shut down what the religious do, okay? Because they can't deny you equal access. I remember many, many years ago in the town of Wyckoff, New Jersey, they had a sign up. It was Keep Christ in Christmas.
Yes.
And in order to get that down, it was on public property. It was on the municipal building, public property. So I knew that I wouldn't win in court. The first thing you should always do is try and win in the courts. But I knew we wouldn't win in court. So what I did was I asked for equal access to, did I lose you?
No,
I lost you.
No.
Oh. All right. So I asked for equal access to put up a sign. Now, if you're going to ask for equal access, it can't be something that's sweet and have a happy winter, because the object is to get the unconstitutional display removed. So in order to get that removed, you have to want to put up something that they have to deny. In order to deny you, they have to deny everybody. So I got permission to put up a display. First, they wanted to pre-approve it. And I said, no, you didn't pre-approve them. Show me where the rules say you have to pre-approve the religious sign. They couldn't. Well, then you can't pre-approve mine. Then they wanted me to make the letters small enough, or big enough or small enough. I think it was big enough so that people driving by could read it. Of course, no, it was small enough. They wanted it small so that nobody driving by would be distracted. But that's not a good idea, because that would, cause people to, if they can't read it, they might slow down. There could be an accident. They tried to put everything in my way. And finally they couldn't. All right, they couldn't stop me. So my sign was solstice is the reason for the season, but that's not objectionable. It had to have American Atheists. It had to have the word atheist in big letters on there. That they didn't want on public property, okay? And it had to have the word atheist in there. You can't say happy winter, because they'll leave yours up and theirs will still be up. Yours has to be so objectionable that they want everything down in order to keep yours down. So folks, if you're going to ask for equal access, make yours something they cannot have up, okay? They cannot have it up. Therefore, in order to have yours come down, everything has to come down. Therefore, theirs will come down. So in order to get denied, my sign actually went up, but someone stole it and it was gone.
Of course it did. But what my question though is, because it wasn't a religion.
Let me just, the upshot of it was the next year they decided not to have any signs go up. So it was a win-win.
It is a win-win.
But then if they let my sign stay up and it wasn't torn down, well, I get some publicity for American Atheists. So it was a win.
Well, so my question though is, because it wasn't a religious symbol you were putting up in the public. So I mean, well, no, I was thinking along the lines of, because you weren't a religion, wouldn't that mean that they would be allowed to say, no, you can't put that up there because you can't hide behind religion? Or, but it's in public, so yeah.
The religious politicians, remember, they are pandering to their religious community because the squeaky wheel gets the grease, folks. That's the only reason why they're doing it, because of the pressure from the religious constituents and neighbors. So you all need to get out there and demonstrate that you have as many voters who will vote them out of office. But they will throw everything in your way, even the stupidest reasons why you can't have a sign up. But if they didn't have those objections for the religious, it's got to be fair. They have to demonstrate that they had those same rules for the religious sign. Okay, so if anybody, I mean, I can help get any religious sign down.
And yeah, of course, no, you can. And I mean, it's like you were saying about activism work, for the record, guys. I mean, I've staged on my own. I've staged 3 protests now, 2 of which have gotten national attention. And it's such a great time. It's fun. It's a catharsis. I mean, because I'm an angry protester. You know, I'm a typical angry protester. I'm loud. But it's, you know, the fact that people will go to fight you on everything, that makes it, to me, that makes it more fun, because you know you're doing the right thing. If well, I don't want to sound like a martyr, but if you see opposition and you think about the reasons for that opposition, like what they're saying is wrong about what you're doing, to me, that just makes it more fun. So.
Right, and activism is empowering. You're doing something.
Exactly. That's what's fun about it.
It makes you feel good. I'd rather have somebody else angry with me for my activism than for me to be angry with myself.
Yes, for not doing
for
something.
allowing somebody to take advantage of me. So you remember the old saying, and I think it started with Eleanor Roosevelt and then Dear Abby, no one takes advantage of you without your permission.
Right. Yes, you said that last time. And you know, it's one thing I think I said last time too, I want to remind everybody of this, is it's not just the opposition, you know. When you're doing activism work, I always love this. I made my own quote, actually. I made up my own credo. Activism work in a nutshell is you've got everybody who opposes your message, doing everything they can to shut you down and belittle you. And you've got everybody who's on your side doing everything they can to shut you down and belittle you. So the thing that, I mean, it's where it manifests itself is, I mean, every time I put my voice out, you know, I put out my message, I always get people who even would ordinarily agree with me always saying, well, what's your take on, how do you explain this, or how do you account for this, or how do we do this? It's always, when people see that you're doing something, they don't like it out of jealousy. It's like when they see an eccentric person, of course they're going to hate an eccentric person, because you've got what they want. So I get from people all the time, you know, you're not really doing this the right way, or you're such a hypocrite. No, you don't let that slow you down. People are going to get at you for anything. It's only a testament to your own strength, I think. So, right. And we have the votes, we have the numbers. So get out there and show your power.
Run for office. Run for office at the local level, and you can do it. You can hide your atheism. I don't care. Be a stealth candidate. Don't let anybody, if they can't find it out from doing opposition research, if they can't find it out, whatever, if you can hide it, fine. I don't care. Just get into office. But if you want to come out, a lot of what we formed Enlighten the Vote, a political action committee to support atheists and other seculars running for office. We didn't think anybody would come out and want our support, and we were pleasantly surprised at all the people who were atheists who were running for office at the local level. And we also decided we were going to donate money to national candidates. And let me see if I can find a list of all of those people who went and took our money. Looking well.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, Madeline, another quote from Madeline while you're looking for that is that I always love hearing is she said something to the effect of, I've got a list of atheist politicians and actors and prominent people out there, and if I ever were to say that, I'm gonna read off that list of names one day, and it's gonna make their toes curl.
Just like the administration. I mean, how many of the Trumpers? I mean, the Republicans hate Trump, but they're keeping it a secret. But there are a lot of people who are in office who agree with us, but they don't have the political backing. They know that the religious are going to vote them out of office and the atheists are not going to vote their atheism. But this was 2004. In 2004, we were concerned that we wouldn't be well received by politicians at the national level, but we were. I met with Senator Dianne Feinstein of the Senate Judiciary Committee. I met with John Conyers. I met with Gerald Nadler of the House Judiciary Committee, Pete Stark of the he's now deceased, Powerful Ways and Means Committee. And they Dianne Feinstein said I was very courageous. I would say the same thing about her. But so let me see. In 2004, a Reform Party candidate for president asked for our endorsement. And a Hispanic atheist candidate running for state representative of District 35 as a Democrat asked for our endorsement. Josh Boughton ran for office in New York State, won our endorsement. David Wallace Croft ran for the Texas House of Representatives in District 65, won our endorsement. Jack Truman ran as a Democratic candidate for the 7th District in Southwest Missouri. And I can go on. All these people wanted our endorsement and our money.
Yeah, I
so
mean,
this is what we need to do. We need to we have a political action committee. It's kind of quiet now because I was fired by American Atheists. I'm kind of, out of the biz now. But we have to take up the mantle and we have to start supporting getting atheists running for office.
They need to get you. I think they need to get you back at this point. I mean, that's a shout out to you, American Atheists. The list just goes on and on. And I mean, even now, like you got Planned Parenthood, who is partnered with American Atheists for quite a while because they're a beautiful organization. Contrary to very popular belief. Again, keyword belief. But getting back to something you said, the religious. I want to stress that the religious, they want the children. I remember when I was right before I became an atheist, when I was about 15 years old, there was this goofy guy, this big oaf, Bob Lenz was his name, Lenz, Bob Lenz. He came and spoke at my school when I was about 14 and a half, 15 years old. Because that's where they know that they'll have a captive audience, as you said. They know that the kids are impressionable. They know that and what I love is how they talk about, they always quote the scripture of how the enemy is, I don't even know if it's in the scriptures, how the enemy is always after our children. The devil's sneaking around. No, you're the ones doing that. You're just projecting. You're the ones who are going after the children because they're easy to brainwash. Your brain is not fully cooked until you hit 25 years old, for crying out loud. So kids it's the worst kind of child abuse. And this guy, he came and spoke at my school, and I got heavy into Christianity after hearing him speak because he was a good speaker. Just don't, I would say don't, I was actually in a discussion night before last with the Raging Atheist on a live stream about the question of whether indoctrination is child abuse. It is, because you need to teach your children not about religion, but just teach them what they need to know as far as what is just, it has nothing to, religion doesn't play a role. Just teach them what's factual and what's right,
Well, I do think that it's important for, in school for students to learn about all religions.
Oh, so you think, okay, so I was going to ask your take on that. So you think that
comparative religion class, all of them without whitewashing. Let an atheist teach it.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
Okay.
Do a comparative religion study where you have just, don't look at religion as a follower. Just look at it as it is,
I mean, I had comparative religion when I was in school, and I think that's an important part of any student's education, to know about all the religions. But the Christians don't want that. They can't compete. They don't want to be in competition with other ideas. They only want Christianity taught. They only want their Christian Bible in the school. So Bible classes in the public schools, when they ask that, they only want the Christian Bible. We all know that. I'm not saying anything we don't all know. They don't want any other holy books in there. They just want the one. So I say teach them all. Bring them all in. But they don't want that. That would,
yeah, exactly. That would be kind of a hitch in their plan. And because we were talking about this last time also, you were lucky enough to you had great parents. You weren't brought up with religion.
Right. They were just kind of secular, not interested. My mother worked on Sundays at the Presbyterian Church in the nursery, taking care of the children. And my father would hang out in the yard and hang out at home, which sent a very important message to me. It wasn't important to Dad. Church was not important. But my friends were Lutherans here and Catholics here, strict Lutherans and strict Catholic family. But I didn't know what I was. So what are we? I thought, what am I? We don't go to church. What am I?
Yeah.
And
like you have to have that identity. And that was when it went on to, when you heard Madeline speak or saw her speak, that was when you got the label atheist, and it empowered you, right?
Right. I saw Madeline O'Hare on television on a Sunday, and she was sitting on a stage, and the audience was full of all kinds of clergy.
Yes.
And everything she said was truthful. She was right about everything. And I learned the word atheist, and I said, oh, that's what I am. I'm an atheist. Wrote to American Atheists. There was an organization. Joined immediately, went to their convention that year. And interestingly, I think I mentioned this, but I'll never forget, when the Murray O'Hares disappeared, we went to the American Atheist Center, went through every piece of paper there, through everything to see if we could find out what happened to them. And I found that letter that I first sent to them asking for information. I have it.
Wow.
I still have it here. But yeah, I
Oh,
joined.
do you have it with you by chance, or is it in your office or something?
Yes, I do have it here. I'd have to find it, but I have it. I could dig it out, but not. I'd have to leave the camera.
I was gonna say, how long would it take?
I should frame it.
You really should. I'd love to say. I wish I had prepared more. I would have asked you to bring it out. But the fact that they still had it, you know. Sorry, you were saying?
Everything. You know, the internet really wasn't up and running. Everything was saved.
Well, and I mean, it goes to show, you know, guys, how you can, even if you feel like a nobody, you can make a difference. And that's the beauty. That's another part of the beauty of activism work, is that not only is it empowering, and that if somebody, as I've said, you know, part of the beauty of activism work is if somebody hurts you, it just proves your point. But another thing that's beautiful about it is even the smallest person can make it. Even one small voice can make a difference. I don't want to sound saccharine here, but you know, you can do anything. You can take. The sky is the limit, truly. So,
right.
And I mean, it's getting back to what you said about as far as Madeline, you know, debating the clergy. Is what I love is she was in a sense just a lady, right? You had all these people from the clergy who knew their position in and out. But what I love also about atheism is that I've said this, that a 5-year-old atheist could debate a seasoned theologian or theologist and probably still win the argument. You know, a child could defeat an adult in an argument because we have the facts on our side. I'm sorry to say it that way, but we have, well, actually, I'm not really sorry. I just know how it sounds. We have the facts on our side, and you've studied the system of beliefs, and, you know, you think it's right, but is it? You know, so.
I remember I was on a lot of television shows, on all the Fox shows, and they were MSNBC, all of them. And I remember 2 things would happen. If you go on Fox, and this is for any of you who are going to go on Fox.
I wish I had talked to you. I wish I had talked to you before Fox News interviewed me that one time.
Who was the host? Do you remember?
Oh no. Okay. So no, it was just on a local level. The first big protest I staged, I was protesting the Make America Straight Again conference. And it was just this guy, but you know, Fox, they ended up twisting what I had to, in a way. They ended up cutting out. I talked to the guy for 10 minutes. It was just a cameraman. The reporter didn't even come to my place. It was just a cameraman. I talked to him for about 10 minutes, and they only gave me 2 tiny little sound bites. And they painted the pastor of the church in such a good light, and you know, he was just trying to put his position out. And they only gave me two little sound bites, you know, 2 little tidbits. So.
But that's okay. I mean, because there are atheists who will have heard you, and they get that.
Yes.
But if you're going on their talk show, you're in the studio. I have 2 things. If it's Fox, the Fox hosts don't prepare for you. They have a lot of segments they have to cover, and they don't prepare and that's to your advantage. They just figure they're going to insult you.
Yeah.
That you're is coming on. They don't have time to prepare. They're not going to wait. They're just going to insult you. It's an atheist, for crying out loud. They figure this is going to be
it's easy. It's a cakewalk, yeah.
But it's not, because you're going to be prepared. You have to know what you're going to say. You have to be prepared to get your point across. You're going on there to say these things, and you have to get it in there. You have to say, if they start going off message, you say, I agree with you, but the more important point is come back here. So get your point across. They don't prepare for you. None of them prepared for you. But then the other thing is you can be on other shows. I remember I was on MSNBC, and they brought on a religious person, and this is where it's not so easy, because they brought on a religious person, and I'm prepared. I know this. I know my subject. I know the issue. I know why I was brought on there. But this religious person said the most wacky stuff that I didn't even know how to respond, because it was so off the wall.
Yeah.
Sometimes that happens. You have to be prepared when somebody's just cuckoo, when they say something that's not relevant, that's just nutty. So they will throw out things to you that are just nutty. So be prepared. That was the one time where I didn't know what to say.
You had your WTF moment. No, it's inherently nutty, and I mean but that's a great. I'm glad. Thank you for saying that. Anybody out there, always educate yourself, but be prepared, because it's so great to know that on Fox they don't prepare for you. They have one little thing like, this is an atheist, this is what they're trying to do, let's get them. Let's attack them. That's great for us, because we can have the upper hand in many ways.
Right. Who's that blonde woman on Fox?
Oh, you got Megyn Kelly.
No, she's gone. She's Laura,
not Laura Ingraham. Or is it Laura Ingraham?
Yes, Laura Ingraham. She's the worst. I've been on her radio show as well, because she is just one of the worst, most obnoxious people, because she doesn't even try to interview you. She just calls you names. She is the most nasty person. She was just the worst. She was the worst.
Yeah, it's you always have to. I mean, I don't want to say fight fire with fire, because that's up for debate for sure. But I mean, you have to. I mean, that's why I always Dave Silverman, even or even Professor Dawkins. When they've been on Bill O'Reilly's show or Sean Hannity, I don't think they're tough enough on them. They should have gotten me in there. I always say, because I grew up with Baptist preachers, so I could hit them back with what they're.
You know exactly what they're talking about, but where are the atheists on television?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, exactly. I mean, that's where are it's only once in a blue moon.
There are a lot of atheist, humanist, secularist organizations out there. You're telling me one of them can't get on television? Are you kidding me? There's so many issues right now that we should be on top of and all over. Where are the marches? Where are the TV interviews? Where is all of this? Nothing is happening. Why?
I can assure you I'm working on it. I can assure you I'm working on it, madam. I'm going to make you proud if I can. I guess, okay, so one thing I wanted to ask you, and then I know, I'm sure we can wrap it up at this point. So Bill, let's talk about Bill Murray. Not the Bill Murray, William J. Murray. I mean, I know that movie I mentioned that was on Netflix, they probably didn't portray him terribly accurately, 100%, not too fairly, but I still think that the guy was a tremendous disappointment. I mean, he broke Madeline's heart, and he's just a cowardly snake. I mean, he advised President Bush, he advised W, and is now trying to get prayer back in schools. What's your take on him, or what would you have to say to him?
He was a teenager when the case came down. He was brutalized. He was beaten. He was a very smart, great person. It broke him. I think it broke him. He was married. He started to drink. He started to beat his wife. It broke him. I think that broke him. The Christians broke him. And Madeline said that at one point he was thrown into jail. He was in jail for a week. When he came out, he never told anybody what happened when he was in there. And she, as a mother, when she when she would say that, she said, my son never said one word. He wouldn't tell anybody what happened to him when he was in there. And we don't know, and he'll never say, but you could just imagine.
Yeah.
I think that he was just broken. And in order to make a living, he went to the dark side, if you will. He got paid lots of money. And, he did what he just, out of anger. A lot of people, when they got angry with Madeline for something, they would, start to insult atheists or American atheists or Madeline. A lot of people did that. And he did the same thing. He lashed out, but he lashed out at her, unfortunately, and the organization.
Yeah, he went right back to the people who broke him.
Exactly. So it's identifying with your captors. What is that thing that it's
Stockholm syndrome? Yeah.
Yes, very good. I don't remember that. The Stockholm syndrome. But yeah, and he lied about her. Said she was a communist. Trust me, Madeline was a famous atheist. If she was a communist, she'd shout it from the rooftops. She'd have no problem.
She would say it. Yeah.
She would. She didn't hide anything. What would be the big? So he tried to disparage her, and he made a living, and he makes a living, and he wrote books and stuff like that. So, but I think most of it's I think it's lies. I can't recall, but it's been a while. All the things that he said, but I wouldn't believe anything he had to say.
Well, you don't have to hang up. I just have to end the video. I guess I'll end it with this. I don't know if I asked you this last time, but what I'd like to wrap it up with, which I probably would do for every interview, but especially you, the likes of you, if you could put one message out to everybody on Earth, what would it be?
Oh, that's huge. And you didn't warn me.
I didn't warn her, for the record. That was my fault, beloved. I didn't prepare her for that. I wanted this to be an off-the-cuff discussion.
I don't have one. The only thing I can say, and this is unrelated, can I say something that's totally unrelated?
Please.
It's totally, because I have lots of messages. I have many, many, many messages. And I'm going to say one that's unrelated, but this is really important. Stay away from opioids and heroin, because you will get infected, and that infection stays with you for life. And it's killing people. And our society doesn't know how to treat people who are infected with an addiction. And be kind to people who have addictions, whether it's gambling or alcoholism or whatever an addiction is. Be kind to people, because you don't know what they're going through. I don't have one, but we all know people who have, and they're suffering every day.
They're sick. They're suffering. Exactly.
They're suffering every day, and those people who have an opioid or heroin addiction, those who don't overcome it die from it, and it's very brutal. And
they're sick. I mean, it's We don't think of them as sick people. We think of them as bad people who are just doing the wrong thing. No, they're sick.
Exactly. And I challenge anybody who thinks that they could overcome and do better. Go ahead, get hooked on heroin and show us how it's done. But wait a minute. I will do anything to prevent you from getting hooked on heroin to show us, because I know that you will behave just the same way as everybody else. Heroin or opioid was the same as everybody else.
Hang on, you were.
No one.
Hang on 1 second. 1 second. You were. Your audio was cutting out. Can you repeat? Can you repeat that whole last sentence?
If I started using an opioid or heroin, I would be no different than everybody else. My addiction would be the same, my behavior would be the same, and my actions would start to be the same as everybody else. Anybody here who thinks they could do better, you can't, okay? And I won't let you try and get on heroin to try and prove it, because I know you couldn't. So this message is for the police, it's for the judges, it's for the probation officers, it's for the lawyers, it's for everybody else who's so smug when it comes to people with an opioid or heroin addiction. Stop it, okay? These people need our sympathy and our help.
Yeah, they need the right kind of help. And thank you so much because actually that could segue through to religion too, because if an atheist out there, if you're watching and or listening, um, you know, I used to when I was a younger, you know, I'm still a young man to some extent. I don't feel like it, but when I was about, you know, 19, 20 years old, I was smug about, you know, religious people and their beliefs. I would laugh at them. But now I've started to get more perspective. It's sad to me that to see that they're sick, they've been poisoned. So if you're smug in that respect, I think that's also a good message to put out is that, you know, try to understand them. Know your enemy. You know, if somebody disagrees with you, don't automatically assume that they're bad people or don't see them as bad people.
Right, and as far as the connection with religion, what do atheists get you know, sent to? They get sent into programs where
Exactly.
AA,
AA,
you
yep.
know, the AA program with the 12 steps is what they have to sit, you know, through. The programs are bad for a number of reasons, but that's one of them. And you know, the atheist says, we need to just give them what they need. Set up a clinic, let them go get what they need in a safe manner, let them leave safely. They're not going to steal, they're not going to overdose, they're not going to get sick, and all of that. But that's the atheist rational position. And they don't need AA, and they don't need to be sitting in a room talking about using drugs all the time. They don't want to talk about it because that makes them want to use.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, I don't want an hour about this subject. But that's
No,
my
no, please. I
message.
mean, it's, I mean, is there anything else you want to say before we end it?
Well, no, that's good for now.
Okay.
I go on.
Well, maybe one day we could talk again. I just don't want to take up too much of
We
your time, but yeah, let me just end the video.
My
You don't
pleasure.
have to you don't have to hang up yet. Ellen, thank you so much for coming on again. Guys, keep an eye out for part one. I'm going to get it up as soon as I can. I just have to get the sound fixed. Um, thanks so much for watching. Remember everything we talked about here. It's really important. These are important things politically and socially. So this is your old pal CK Blackwood signing off.